At 10 o'clock, the BBC News now on BBC One with Sophie Rayworth. Expect flashing images.
Two massive explosions at a port in China. Hundreds of people are reported injured. The force of the blast could be felt miles away. Reports say it was triggered when a shipment of explosives detonated in a warehouse. Hospitals in the city are said to be inundated with casualties. Police are saying at least 7 people have died, but the full extent of the damage and the number of casualties is still unclear. Also tonight, Labour faces annihilation if Jeremy Corbyn wins the leadership contest, warns former Prime Minister Tony Blair. Nearly 2 million European Union nationals are now working in the UK. The figure's almost doubled in 5 years. Police on the Greek island of Kos used tear gas to push back desperate migrants who've arrived by sea. And a Hollywood farewell to Uggie, the Jack Russell who stole the show in the Oscar-winning film The Artist.
Later on BBC London, cyclists in Paris can now jump some red lights legally. The growing calls for London to follow suit, and hopes that the next round of tube strikes will be called off.
Good evening. There have been 2 huge explosions in the Chinese city of Tianjin, southeast of the capital, Beijing. There are reports that hundreds of people have been injured after a fireball at the city's port. Police say that at least 7 people have been killed. The force of the blast could be felt for miles around. The windows were blown in and buildings damaged. Chinese state television says the blasts erupted in a shipment of explosives. Well, John Sudworth is in Beijing. His report contains flashing images.
Taken from a high-rise apartment block, this piece of mobile phone video illustrates well the scale of the disaster. There's already been 1 explosion, and then this. At a distance of more than a mile, it takes a full 8 seconds for the force of the blast to arrive. Eyewitnesses have been speaking of the effect on the buildings that were even closer.
I was sleeping and got woken up by a massive explosion. I could just feel my whole building shake. I thought it was an earthquake. So I just kind of woke up in a panic, looked out the window, and the sky was red. My friend who took the video, she only had 1 apartment in between her and a clear view of the port. You can see the port from her apartment. And her whole veranda, all of her sliding doors got blown in. And if she was sitting on the couch watching TV at that time, she probably would have got hit by them.
There are reports of hospitals being overwhelmed with casualties, while the official estimate of the numbers of dead and injured is changing rapidly. Tianjin is a major port city just 70 miles from Beijing and home to more than 10 million people. State media is reporting that the site of the explosion, or what's left of it underneath the towering black cloud of smoke, was a special warehouse for storing dangerous materials. There's no further detail yet on exactly what was being stored here.
Well, John Sudworth is in Beijing. Extraordinary images. The extent of the damage still unclear, though. What more can you tell us?
Well, state media, Sophie, still reporting 7 people killed so far and 180 people admitted to hospital. But you have to wonder, given those scenes, whether those figures are going to rise further. I was actually in that area of Tianjin earlier today, obviously on a separate reporting trip. It's just a short distance from Beijing, and it's an area largely industrial, but there are these pockets of residential homes quite close by. And given that this took place at around 11:30 at night, when of course most families would have been at home asleep in bed, it gives you a sense of how vulnerable many of them were. And some of the still photographs being posted online really give you a sense of the carnage. People showing internal doors ripped off their hinges, obviously glass scattered everywhere inside their apartments. And then some of the most upsetting images from the surrounding streets and the hospital waiting areas, showing some of those injured people, parents carrying in injured children. Really, hospitals clearly struggling to cope with this huge influx of injured people. The latest from the scene, Sophie, is that there are something like 100 fire trucks there now, and that the blaze is still burning as those firefighters try to bring it under control.
Thank you.